James Carver, a man of 48, stood by his car on the side of Route 17, his posture calm but alert. A former FBI special agent with 20 years of service, he'd seen enough to know when trouble was brewing. The flashing lights of a patrol car had pulled him over minutes earlier, and now Officer Daniel Hargrove, a white cop in his mid-30s, approached with a swagger that set James's nerves on edge. Hargrove's eyes narrowed as he took in James, black, well-dressed, driving a late-model SUV. To Hargrove, that didn't add up. James had been driving through Warrenton, Virginia, heading home to D.C. after visiting family. The stop came out of nowhere. No speeding, no swerving, just a vague claim of a taillight issue. James knew better. He'd been here before, profiled on roads across the country, his credentials ignored, his dignity tested. Still, he kept his hands visible, his voice steady, ready to de-escalate. He'd survived worse than this: raids, interrogations, threats from criminals and colleague alike. A small-town cop wasn't going to rattle him. Hargrove, though, had other plans. He leaned against James's car, his hand resting on his holster, his tone dripping with contempt. "Where you headed, boy?" he asked, the word landing like a slap. James's jaw tightened, but he answered evenly. "D.C., officer. Just visiting family." Hargrove smirked, unconvinced. "Family, huh? You sure you're not running something? Car like this? Out here?" He gestured at the SUV, implying it didn't belong to a man like James. James exhaled slowly, keeping his temper in check. "I'm a retired FBI agent, sir. My ID's in my wallet if you need to see it." Hargrove's smirk vanished, replaced by a scowl. The mention of the FBI didn't impress him. It irritated him. "FBI, huh? Sure you are. Step out of the vehicle." His voice was sharp now, the pretense of civility gone. James complied, moving deliberately, his hands raised slightly. He knew the drill. No sudden moves, no excuses, just survival. Hargrove patted him down roughly, his hands lingering, searching for a reason to escalate. Finding nothing, he stepped back, his frustration palpable. "You got a smart mouth, don't you?" he snapped. "Think you're better than me 'cause you claim you're some Fed?" James said nothing, his eyes locked on Hargrove's. Silence was his weapon, a refusal to give the cop the reaction he craved. But Hargrove wasn't done. He leaned closer, his voice low and venomous. "You people always got an excuse, don't you? Driving fancy cars, acting like you own the place." The racial undertone was unmistakable, a line crossed with no hesitation. Unbeknownst to Hargrove, a second patrol car was approaching, its lights off, pulling up quietly behind his vehicle. Inside was Lieutenant Maria Torres, a veteran officer with the Warrenton Police Department. Torres had been monitoring radio chatter and heard Hargrove's call about a suspicious vehicle. Something about his tone, too eager, too aggressive, had raised a red flag. She decided to check it out herself, arriving just as Hargrove's tirade began. Torres stepped out of her car, her presence unnoticed by Hargrove, who was too focused on James. She watched for a moment, her expression hardening as she caught the tail end of Hargrove's words. She'd known him for years, heard the rumors about his conduct, but never caught him in the act. Now, she had a front-row seat. James, still standing by his car, finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Officer, I've done nothing wrong. If you're detaining me, I'd like to know the charge." Hargrove's face reddened, his hand twitching toward his taser. "You don't get to ask questions," he barked. "You do what I say or—" "Officer Hargrove." Torres's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Hargrove froze, turning to see his lieutenant striding toward him. Her eyes were steel, her badge catching the sunlight. "Step away from the citizen. Now." Hargrove hesitated, his defiance flickering, but he complied, moving back a few steps. James remained still, his hands still visible, his gaze shifting to Torres. He didn't know her, but her rank and demeanor suggested she wasn't here to play games. Torres addressed James first. "Sir, I'm Lieutenant Maria Torres. Are you all right?" James nodded, his voice even. "Yes, ma'am. Just trying to get home." She glanced at his car, then back at him. May I see your ID, please? James gestured to his wallet on the hood, and Torres picked it up, flipping it open. Her eyes widened slightly as she saw the retired FBI credential, complete with James's photo and service record. She turned to Hargrove, her voice low but commanding. Explain this stop, officer. And choose your words carefully. Hargrove stammered, caught off guard. Taillight was out, Lieutenant. He was acting suspicious, so I. Suspicious how? Torres interrupted, her tone icy. Because he's black? Because he's driving a nice car? Hargrove's mouth opened, but no words came. Torres stepped closer, her voice dropping further. I heard what you said, Hargrove. You people. That's on body cam. Mine and yours. You want to keep digging? Hargrove's face paled. He hadn't realized Torres was close enough to hear, let alone record. His body cam, mandatory for all stops, had captured every word, every sneer. He tried to backpedal. I didn't mean it like that, ma'am. I was just... Save it, Torres snapped. She reached for her radio, her eyes never leaving Hargrove. Dispatch, this is Lieutenant Torres. I need a supervisor and an additional unit at my location, Route 17, mile marker 42. Code 10 to 38. The code signaled an officer misconduct incident, a rare call that sent a ripple through the department. James watched, his expression unreadable. He'd seen cops close ranks before, protecting their own even when they were wrong. But Torres wasn't playing that game. She turned back to him, her voice softening. Mr. Carver, I apologize for what you've experienced. I'll need you to stay a moment while we sort this out. You're not in any trouble. James nodded. Understood, ma'am. He leaned against his car, his arms crossed, watching as the situation unfolded. Hargrove stood frozen, his bravado gone, replaced by a dawning realization of the trouble he'd brought on himself. Within minutes, a third patrol car arrived, carrying Captain Robert Ellison, a grizzled supervisor with 30 years on the force. Ellison stepped out, his expression grim as he took in the scene. Torres, calm and authoritative. Hargrove, sweating and silent. And James, composed despite the ordeal. Torres briefed Ellison quickly, her words precise. Racial profiling, verbal abuse, unwarranted escalation, all on body cam. She handed over James's FBI credential, and Ellison's jaw tightened as he read it. Ellison turned to Hargrove, his voice low but firm. Officer, you're relieved of duty pending investigation. Hand over your weapon and badge. Hargrove's eyes widened, his mouth working soundlessly. Captain, Now, Ellison barked. Hargrove fumbled with his holster, removing his service pistol and badge, his hands shaking. Torres stepped forward, pulling cuffs from her belt. Turn around, she said, her voice devoid of sympathy. Hargrove complied, his head bowed, as the cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. 2 minutes had passed since Torres's arrival, and Hargrove's world had collapsed. James watched as Hargrove was led to Ellison's patrol car, his head down, his authority stripped away. He felt no satisfaction, only a weary recognition. This wasn't his first run-in with a cop like Hargrove, and it wouldn't be the last. But today, at least, the system had worked, swiftly, decisively, thanks to Torres and Ellison. Ellison approached James, his expression apologetic. Mr. Carver, I'm sorry you went through this. We'll be conducting a full investigation, and I assure you, this officer's actions don't reflect our department. James nodded, his voice steady. I appreciate that, Captain. Just make sure it doesn't happen again. Torres handed James his wallet back, along with a card. If you need to follow up, call me directly, she said. Your taillight's fine, by the way. You're free to go. James took the card, his eyes meeting hers. Thank you, Lieutenant. He got back in his SUV, started the engine, and pulled onto Route 17, the patrol cars fading in his rearview. For Hargrove, the ride to the station was silent, the cuffs a cold reminder of his fall. He'd been untouchable for years, his biases unchecked, his power unquestioned. Now, he faced suspension, possibly termination, and the weight of his own words preserved on video. The body cam footage would be reviewed, the incident reported to the state, and Hargrove's career hung by a thread. Torres and Ellison returned to the station, their minds heavy. They knew the department had work to do, training, accountability, rooting out the rot Hargrove represented. But today they'd acted, and a man like James Carver had walked away with his dignity intact. James, meanwhile, drove on, the Virginia countryside rolling past. He'd call his wife soon, tell her what happened, hear her worry and her pride. He'd file a formal complaint, ensure Hargrove's actions had consequences. But for now, he focused on the road ahead, his hands steady on the wheel. He'd face down worse than Daniel Hargrove and come out standing. Today was no different. The incident spread through Warrenton like wildfire, whispered in diners, debated online. A black FBI veteran, disrespected and targeted, had seen justice served in minutes. Torres became a quiet hero, Ellison a symbol of accountability. And Hargrove? He became a cautionary tale, a man undone by his own hate, cuffed by the system he thought he owned.